All right, looks like we are good to go. So hi everyone, thanks for joining today's webinar, Transform Your Construction Operations with Microsoft 365. My name is Alana Danowski. I am the Marketing Coordinator for Withum's Construction Niche. Today's program will be presented by Adam Levinthan, Sherry Good, and Lou Sandor. Before I begin, I just have a few housekeeping notes. Materials for today's presentation can be found in the toolbar located at the right of the screen. At the bottom of the toolbar, you will see a question box. All questions pertaining to the webinar content will be answered at the end. We'll do our best to address them. We'll also be emailing out a copy of the recording and the slide deck after the presentation. And finally, once the webinar is over, there'll be a pop-up asking you to complete a survey of today's webinar. Please take a moment to complete it. It's our best way of being able to provide you with the best and most relevant programs possible. Lastly, I want to thank you all for filling out the survey when registering. This allowed us to tailor presentation as best as possible. Just wanted to share some of the results of who's in our audience today. So some results we got were 60% of the attendees currently use Microsoft 365. The top answers for using virtual meetings were Teams followed by Zoom. As well, the attendees used for document storage. A lot of people selected other. And then the second answer was network shares. For timesheets, it was split in half, so 50% used electronic timesheets and the other half used manual timesheets. And then for people using DocuSign, 60% of the attendees use DocuSign and 40% do not. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lou Sandor to introduce himself.
Hey, thank you, Alana, and thank you all the participants for attending. My name is Lou Sandor. I am dialing in from New Jersey, good old Millstone Township, and I am the practice leader of Withum Smith & Brown's construction services team. I've been here for 30 years, one of the original partners, and I enjoy skiing, boating, fishing, and wielding a hammer when necessary, as Adam says. I would like to give you basically some brief introduction on the next slide. Is something that came out from McKinsey & Company called The Next Normal in Construction. And I wanted to put this in this slide deck so everybody has a copy of it. And McKinsey is a very large consultant firm, and they've been spending a lot more time in the construction industry. And they are criticizing the industry, obviously, from underperforming in the past few decades, not embracing technology. And they came up with a couple of recommendations, the top 9 things that are going to be impacting the industry, especially as a result of COVID. I've been practicing public accounting for about 35 years, and I relate it to being similar to what the manufacturing industry had gone through. Very challenging times in the United States, and they had to re-embrace and reinvent themselves, which they have. So I think the construction industry is going to go through some significant changes in the next decade. And Adam, if you put the next slide on, you'll see some of the information that they are recommending. They're talking about product-based approach, increased specialization, value chain control and integration, and consolidation, which we are all seeing in the construction industry with a lot of our clients being approached by private equity. Customer centricity and branding, and investment in technologies and facilities. And I wanted to bring this consultant report up because it kind of goes on with our presentation about the next normal in construction, whereas the embracing of digitalization of products and processes. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Adam and Sherry from our Withum Digital team, and I want to thank them in advance of hosting this knowledgeable event.
Thanks so much for the introduction. Yeah, really interesting, and we will focus on investment in technology, maybe not facilities. Actually, we have organizations not having facilities anymore because of the recent events.
Yes.
But before I do that, my name is Adam Levinthan. I'm a practice lead for intranets and teamwork at Withum Digital. So if you weren't aware, and actually I do know that there are some attendees who are aware, Withum is not only tax and auditing, but also advisory across the technology spectrum. And myself and Sherry, who will introduce herself in a second, are in the Microsoft focused area. Fun fact for me, I ride my bicycle a lot. Just finished a virtual, well, I didn't do it virtually, but I did it remotely, 200-mile bike ride fundraiser. And if you're not familiar, I am what they call the Microsoft Most Valuable Professional, which means that I speak around the country on topics such as this. So I really love what I do. I have a passion for it. So happy to share. And please, if you have other questions after today, let us know. Sherry, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. So I'm Sherry Good. I'm a lead consultant or lead business analyst with Witham in the Witham digital space, like Adam described. Fun fact about me is that I have a green thumb and I love to tend to various plants around my house, and I also love to cook. And when I'm not doing those fun things, I am working with firms to build their digital workspace strategies, so whether that's intranets or business process automation. I've also worked almost 10 years as within a Washington, D.C. general contractor, both in the administrative support role and IT support. So I bring that construction background as in the inner workings of how teams work through those different processes, as well as the technology. So I look forward to sharing more of our knowledge and what we learned today.
Thanks, Sherry. And enough about us. Most of you did answer the survey questions already, and we greatly appreciate that, but we wanted to even go further to value your time today. So poll number 1, we're gonna ask a little bit about you and what is your biggest concern about the new normal that we're talking about? And so, communications and training, costs, ongoing productivity, security. We didn't let you choose more than one here. I know that was fairly unfair of us, but we wanted to try to see how people answer. All right, so we're almost at everyone voting. And the leader of this is ongoing productivity, which definitely can mean different things. There's the question, there's also the chat if you want to put a comment about what that means to you. And then also security and communication, pretty close together. So number 1 was ongoing productivity. Thanks for participating. And we'll have a few more of those throughout the session. So just a little bit more about Witham Digital, and what we like to do is we like to focus, I'm going to even highlight it, on people, data, and content. While we deliver technology, and our group is focused on the Microsoft 365 stack, which most of you are in, it is all about making sure that your people are productive, that you have the content and intellectual property to do your work, and then being able to look at all the activities that you've done and gather data, which also adds value into your business. So that's the way we approach working with our clients. So with that said, mentioned Microsoft 365 several times. So today what we're going to do is I'm just going to make sure that we cover all of our bases. And Sherry and I are going to talk about what's in Microsoft 365. Because what we've found recently with the new normal is that people were limited in what they were actually taking advantage of in their licensing. So first, Microsoft 365 is a big thing. Maybe you've heard of Office 365 before, and maybe also Microsoft 365. Office 365 is just a piece of the bigger whole. What Microsoft 365 is the approach to all of the technology included within the Microsoft stack. So you have assets in Azure. Azure is not just the place where you can move servers off your server farm on premises and into the cloud, but it also is the infrastructure of all of Microsoft's cloud. Also with Microsoft 365, you have Windows 10, your actual operating system on your desktop. And this is part of a subscription. So no longer is your operating system tied to your purchase of hardware, it's separate. What does that mean, especially in the new normal? That if a computer broke and someone was working really remotely, they could walk into any computer store, buy any computer, And all of the computer assets are secured by the one login into Microsoft 365. So it's a really exciting way to manage all of your computer systems. Then we have Office 365, all of the functionality for productivity that we use every single day. And then the applications that sit on top of them that allow us to talk to you like we're doing today, and applications like Shifts and creating workflows through Power Automate, everything that you get to interact with the data that is inside Office 365. So that's the general. I also did see a trend that we do have some financial officers here, so I had to go a little bit into licensing. Nobody wants to go into Office 365 licensing as a whole because it's confusing. But in basic, when we talk about Office 365 and enterprise license, you're getting a little piece of Azure. You're not getting the Windows. You're getting all of the features in Office 365 and all of the applications. When you move to Microsoft 365, that's when you're getting more of Azure. That's when you are getting your Windows licenses in the subscription. You're adding security, and you're getting everything else that you already had in Office 365. So I know that's a 30-second overview. Happy to talk more about that offline, but just in general, what does this new term Microsoft 365 mean? Now, more importantly than that is what's inside. And so we've broken it down into 6 areas that we're going to cover. Secure, which 20% of you had said is really important, and I'm sure given the multiple choice everyone would have included. Communication, collaboration, being able to automate, and that's not just the new normal, that's the capabilities that technology has now and processing power. Being able to extend beyond the image I just showed you. What can you do? Can you connect to other systems, and can you pull data in? Can you actually have work product? And then being able to measure what you do. So with that said, first we're going to ask you another question. Because we talked about security, this is my favorite question ever. How many passwords do you use to work from home daily? So believe it or not, there is a right answer here. And actually, Microsoft and other organizations are working towards no passwords. This is what you've heard about, like your iPhone, like your Windows phone once upon a time. Yes, Sherry, you can make fun of me. Was using your facial recognition. That would be 0 passwords, that you don't actually know any of your passwords. All right, it looks like the majority of people have voted and love the answer. That's why we put it there, way too many. At 36%, 29% for 5 to 7, and 2 to 4, and then only 7% for 1. Hopefully that's an attendee from Witham who's answering that, because that is true. So here at Witham, we've created our security and allow you to be able to use 1 password to all of your different solutions. And so that is your second best answer, where 0 eventually will be the answer. So that we deal with that every day. There are ways to do that even with multiple systems. And then especially for those who are in Microsoft 365, maybe it's not costs, but it's for security and convenience. We'll be talking about almost all of the features of other solutions that you are double paying for are in Microsoft 365. Please note that I'm not saying that they're necessarily the best features, but you own them already, so I would recommend that you give them a try. With that said about security, let's talk a little bit about what's in Microsoft 365 about security. The biggest one we just talked about is your password. And so if you do have Microsoft 365, you do have a raised infrastructure of people working remotely right now, highly recommend, as we see on the right, that you're using multi-factor authentication. So that's just like when you're working with your bank, that you log in and it asks you to send you a password. There are multiple ways to do it, but that is the single most way to protect your environment, because passwords, people, are your weakest area. And on the right-hand side too, you see what we've seen a lot over the last 4 months are scams, specifically tied to COVID, specifically tied to getting $600 in the mail, specifically to other aspects of the new normal that we're living in. So you really want to educate your staff to be careful of those emails that they're receiving that might not look suspicious, but certainly are. Also, when we're talking about your security posture right now, you want to know what software people must use, can use. And again, the question is, are they logging in? Are they using a different password? Is it under your control? That's really important. So Sherry, tell me a little bit more about security.
Thanks, Adam. So we also talk about across devices in different locations. So with Microsoft 365, you have the ability to control access, whether the device is owned by the organization or, like we're seeing nowadays, the user owns the device and is bringing it into your company, and you're allowing that user to access company information on their device. So Microsoft 365 gives you the ability to prompt users if they're accessing information that they shouldn't be accessing, whether they have rights to it or not, on those devices or on those company devices. Additionally, policies can be put in place to ensure that users must use a company access to access highly sensitive information versus being able to access email, say, on a personal device. Those types of settings can be set across mobile devices, tablets, and laptops, regardless, again, of ownership and regardless of location of those devices. So Adam, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, very, very important feature. So that's just the 30 seconds of security. So, another area that is really big right now is communication. And so communication is different than collaboration. Communication is one-to-one, messaging is, a question and answer. It's not expecting back and forth. And so here, this is predominantly, as you probably all know, where Microsoft Teams sits, also, Outlook/Exchange. And here, built in already to your solution, you can do one-on-one chats. You can have phone calls directly with a few or a lot of people. You can even have large-scale meetings. I think it's now up to 20,000 people. You can have customer relationship portals. So if people are putting in orders and want to check on their status, that is also included in Microsoft 365. You can build an intranet to communicate internally, I guess an extranet, that's probably on the next slide for collaboration, to communicate externally, and then also share internal news. We have a lot of people who've been turning towards their intranet to share the latest protocols on COVID. What do you do on site? What do you have to do at home? How do you register your health to be able to be tracked? So that's all in the communication stack. While I mentioned it, Sherry, why don't you tell us a little bit more about some areas of collaboration?
Right. So that one of our high poll ratings was productivity. How do you remain productive in this remote world? So like Adam said, I'm only going to talk about a few areas here that I think resonate within your industries. So in the collaborate world, video calls, how can video calls really impact your day-to-day? So we know in construction that really it's about the relationships that you build with your clients, your architects, your project teams, that face-to-face. And being in this virtual realm now, that can be really difficult. So Microsoft Teams, as we mentioned, now has the ability for video calls. So you heard of Zoom, you heard of, we're on a video conferencing software right now, but it allows you to remain connected with your project team, whether that's people that are inside your organization or outside of your organization, and really continue that face-to-face like we're having now. That's of such value to the construction industry. Another area that you want to remain productive is in external sharing of utilizing files of not just with folks within your organization, but with those outside of your organization. So you get things like Microsoft OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint. They all provide methods for authenticating users from outside your organization to share files. A single file can be shared via a secure link. where you just put in a specific user's email address, and you can either let Microsoft send that communication to that user saying that a product or a file has been shared with them, or you can use that link in email and send that to that user, and that user can only access that information with that email address. So that prevents people that are outside of your organization that shouldn't see that file not being able to be authenticated in unless it's coming from that email address. And it also cuts down on the amount of emails, because once that user has that link, they now get the ability to go into Word, Excel, PowerPoint as in the co-authoring experience. So now you can see in real time that user and yourself working on that file. And lastly, let's talk about personal files. And I'll share with you a little bit of short experience from my construction background. Was superintendent. They're out on job sites, you give them a laptop, they're working on their files as well, but they're also known, and I'm dating myself here, they put a lot of files on their hard drive, and there's nothing worse than a crashed computer or a damaged computer coming back into your IT support staff that you can't get those files off that machine. Now with OneDrive, people out in the field can put those files in OneDrive, and that's now associated with their Microsoft profile. So whether that piece of that asset is damaged, you can now reapply that person's user account to a new machine using Windows 10, and they get access to all their OneDrive files. So there's no longer that loss of files or loss of data on a machine hard drive. It's now all in the cloud. So Adam, I'll turn it back over to you to talk about automation.
Great, and you didn't fluster when I just all of a sudden pulled up a live website in front of you. Good job and great story. Also, there's additional on that is that now end users, if they accidentally delete something, they can actually restore it themselves. They don't even have to call IT. So that's another interesting feature, nice to have there. And I teased you all with a little bit of what the OneDrive on the cloud looks like. So here we talk about automation. And so also how that happens of what Sherry just said is something called the Office graph. Maybe you've heard Facebook has a Facebook graph. Well, Microsoft actually does also. The huge difference, this could also fall under security, is that Microsoft only uses this information for productivity inside of Microsoft 365. The information does not get used outside for advertisements or any other commercial use. And so that's how it knows who you are and what you're doing. The other thing you can do is build workflows. And I should have brought up the sample here, but we've worked with a construction organization to automate their process from taking an estimate all the way to the project. And so it starts with a form. It starts with taking items out of email and putting them into a collaborative environment, creating those details, putting it into another system, creating the form. And then if it's approved, it moves on to a collaborative environment where they can work with the client. And if it doesn't, it gets archived and it gets moved off. And all of that is within Microsoft 365. The permissions change as it moves along. The form gets more sophisticated as the process moves along. So it's really exciting to be able to do that. So there's a lot that can be done once you're gathering the data, once you're working in the system. You can then automate on top of all of what you're doing. Here, we also talk about extending, and Sherry has a really good example, and then I'm going to show you something that's picked up here, which Microsoft added a solution called Shifts. But first, Sherry, you want to tell us a little bit about this daily report?
Yes. So one of the other things unique to the construction industry is that they can use a lot of paper. So wouldn't it be nice to have an electronic version of some of those frequently used documents? So I did a little digging, went out, like again, I haven't been in the construction industry in a long time, but I spent a lot of time there. So I didn't know what daily reports look like. So I was able to kind of grab an example off the web and created a quick form through Microsoft 365's forms. So this is completely, snap-in, do not need a developer or anybody with some custom software background. As a business analyst, somebody that is just at the business level, I was able to quickly create a electronic version of a daily report here. As you can see, the first example here is what a user would see logged onto a laptop or onto a desktop. And just like that, if a user access this daily report from their mobile device, they now have this mobile view of this daily report. So what happens to this information after you created this report is anything that is submitted through this report, or submitted through this form, goes into an Excel workbook. So now you have raw data in the background. So what can you do with raw data? You can now use Power BI and make some reports and some dashboards. Maybe some project execs want to see, or your safety person wants to see the daily reports of a project. You now have that raw data to build these dashboards and these reports off. And if you want to learn more about how I created this report, I tell you to go over to the Witham Digital blog and check out the tips for how construction firms can be pandemic ready. And it's a whole blog entry that I did on how I created this report very easily, and anyone can do it. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Sherry. This is pretty cool. And I see a few questions coming in, so please bring on the questions. Also, I'd love to hear if you knew about all these different capabilities, because one of the reasons that we're doing this session is because, well, we don't think a lot of people do, because we see them just using a small fraction of what they're licensed for. And so here I will bring up, and it's showing me, there we go, popped up a different way, gotta love Windows. And I will show you Shifts. So Shifts is included in your subscription. And it is exactly like it sounds. It's 4 shifts. So I'm going to go back a week because I thought I had content in there. Nope. Oh, there we go. 2 weeks. So here, what you can do is you can add shifts when people are working. You can copy the different items. You can paste. So you can do the schedule. No problem here. You can build it from an Excel spreadsheet. Some of my favorite things, you can clock in, you can have a break if you want to see what it's like. And obviously I'm doing this really quick. You can create a shift, you can create the time, you can label it something special. Then you can create breaks in there that they can have a break. Or you can even add other activities, maybe walk the floor. Okay, that's not a good construction example, I'm sorry. All right, we'll make that purple. Maybe check in with manager, and that's gonna be later in the morning. Make that pink. So there you can show each individual that they have specific expectations of them during that shift. So I'll save that. Other quick things, actually this is one of my favorites, is that you can create a request for time off. You can swap, if you have shifts, and then you can check on a team member shift to be able to see that. You also can offer a shift to someone. So all built in, the most common practices of people. This is all, actually it looks even better on the phone. So once people have access, and this is it's called a frontline worker, an F1 license, that they can access all of these features, but I just wanted to show it to you really quickly. I'm actually going to skip the presentation for a second and move into the next one, which is measuring. And so once you've gathered all this data, and even the exact data that Sherry was talking about in the daily report, this is just a random demo sales deck, but you could see there are a lot of different pieces of material. You can highlight the information if you wanted to just filter it by France. All the display will change. And so it's a really great experience to use this solution, which is called Power BI. that brings everything to life. We also see, and I'll talk about this again, that with the remote workforce, it's much easier to have a conversation when you can cut and filter. You're typically having these ideas and thoughts and conversations together. When you're in person, it's harder when you're not face to face. So this allows you to do your background work before coming into that conversation and making your conversation much more effective. And other pieces that you have, there's actually, we talked about information that's gathered for you in the system, and that is a security score, which is really big. So this, Microsoft has gathered best practices. This is a demo environment, so it shows you different requirements. So here I haven't done administrative roles with multi-factor authentication, but I could, so you'd be more secure. So, even without hiring consultants, which we certainly would want you to do, you can see how you can make your environment in Microsoft 365 even better. And then there's also even a compliance score. So, you can decide if you're regulated by different states, federal government. You can decide how you want to relate to those compliance regulations, and you can be able to have that score inside of the system. So these are different ways that Microsoft allows you to measure what you're doing. So those are the, there you go. Those are the introduction. Again, I'd really be interested in hearing from everyone if they learned something from that part. And now we're going to go into some tips and tricks. Oh, you know what? Another thing that I didn't say before, we are going to have a second part of this webinar. You guys will get the links, and in that we're going to dive deep into more construction areas, show you shifts in a little more detail, show you form or an automation in a little more detail. So also, if you have any things that you specifically want to see, you can throw those into a question. Now, one person was asking about collaborating with people outside of the organization. Do they have to have a subscription? And the answer is no. You can invite people into your environment and share with them. So it's really great that not everyone needs to have a subscription. Great question there. Keep the questions coming. Oh, and what was the form created in? It's called Forms. Believe it or not, Microsoft finally naming something that makes sense. That is part of your subscription. Really easy to use there. And a few people chiming in that they are learning. So thanks so much for giving that feedback, and I'm glad that we can provide that learning. So what Sherry and I did want to talk a little bit about is about the users in construction. And so we're going to talk about tips and taking these different types of workers into consideration. So we have information workers, executives, directors, back office. No jokes, please. But what we're trying to do here is just say that they're typically in the office. And so what are they doing right now? They're typically working from home. So they have a different set of circumstances. Then there's project staff who are the owners, the architects, engineers, and quite literally people working on the project. And they can be in more than one places. So like Sherry talked about the need for a device, these staff might not want to lug around a big laptop. They might even have a desktop. I don't even know what that is. And they might want to access all their information on their iPad, and that's fine. Plays well. So different considerations, but the security you want to be the same, so it's important. And then frontline workers. So shifts is targeted towards this major working class that outnumbers typically all of the others. And how are they being communicated to? We talked about the #1 interest of everyone was productivity. This is where productivity comes from. So how are we enabling them through technology? So Sherry, have I done a good job there of describing the different areas? Yep. All right. I see you're nodding. We do have our videos on. Don't know if everyone has those too. And Sherry added the great little conversation chart here of all the people and all the communications that are happening all the time, everywhere. And we do believe that the Microsoft stack can support it. So we were laughing before this. We were on video. The new normal is the realization that there are dogs in the background. Sherry, are they there? No, I don't see them.
No, thank goodness.
There might be there might be kids in the background. I hear mine in the kitchen. Yeah, my office is in an open space, so it's a new professionalism. What you have to do then is actually create a different schedule than what you used to do. That you need to say when you're in, say when you're out, give yourself time. There have been recent articles, and actually Microsoft did a study that there's almost 20% more meetings now that we're remote than when we're in person. Now we might be having those meetings in person, but they are happening scheduled. And so in Microsoft 365, you can tell people that you're available. You can put a little note, which is great. I'm balancing childcare. You can also notify when you get a message so you know, or even better, setting boundaries, you can turn it off. You can set your notifications to shut off at a certain time so that you aren't tethered to all of the notices and conversation that are happening with other peers. Then also a recommendation that we have is to communicate more than you usually do. The little things that we take for granted, we joke about water cooler conversations, and those water cooler conversations don't happen anymore. So in Microsoft Teams, you have the ability to chat one-on-one or within multiple people, and we highly recommend that you do that as often as possible and across those different type of users. It's especially important for the people who are used to working in the office together, but at the same time staying connected to frontline workers that you might see much less than you ever could before. You also, you can set boundaries, and part of the measuring, Microsoft is looking at your productivity. We showed you the security score. There's also a productivity score. There's also something that sends you a note every week about your personal analytics. Tells you, as you see on the screen, how many meetings and emails and percentage of time you're spending on chats. So really interesting. You can see how you're working. Now, with that said, before we go into the next section, really interested to hear what tools you're using to support working from home. Here you can do multiple selection. So is it Microsoft Teams? It sounds like a lot of people do have it and are using it. Are you still using Skype? So that's actually the commercial version. Are you using WebEx? Are you using Zoom? Are you using the multitude of other solutions that are out there? We are not trying to limit, but there are probably 20 different solutions that can be used. All right, so it looks like here we have Teams is the predominant, and then Zoom, and that makes perfect sense. Zoom had a lot of great features that now Microsoft is catching up on. So with that said, the next section, you probably guessed it, is talking about the meetings that we gave you an introduction to. How do you make them the best possible to be? So, we were talking about sometimes bandwidth isn't good. Maybe it's your son, true story, is playing Xbox and it's taking away all the bandwidth of your house. Maybe it's just everyone in the neighborhood is on at the same time. But if you've got it, put your video on. We need that human contact, that face-to-face, and you're on a lot of meetings, so it's important to see the different people that you're working with. Now you can have a background blur on your screen. or a custom image, but at least background blur is good to draw attention back to you. We do also really highlight that you should ask everyone for your input. Don't think that people on the call are as comfortable in a video meeting as they are in person. So it's important to ask for feedback. People are hesitant when they're remote, and maybe they just haven't done it before. Another thing that we like is to record the meeting. And so we didn't talk about it in collaboration, but there is another solution included in Microsoft 365 called Stream. And Stream can act like an internal YouTube. And what you can do is a meeting, you can record it. Really cool feature, after you're recording it, it will transcribe it. When it transcribes it, you can search it and you can find that specific item that you were looking for and re-listen to that area. So if you feel like you're too distracted, then you can go in and re-watch or re-listen to that section. Maybe that dog or baby came into that meeting. Now, I did mention, cool Zoom features before, and I want to present a new news flash. I don't know if are there any NBA fans out there? If there are, you've seen these crazy things on the right-hand side of the screen here, which is the Teams. I'm not sure how you call into it, but they're using Teams live meetings to present people in the stands in what is called together mode. And so right now, on the bottom center here, this is a generic picture, but Teams does have a together mode where it looks like you're sitting in an audience. And Microsoft did actually even do some neurological studies to show that it feels more comfortable for us. So they're also going to present these other views. So you see this one in the center that looks like you're just sitting at a table in the best conference room ever. So again, it's immersive and it makes you feel more in person than before. And then now a multi-channel view that everyone in the meeting can be seen, and that is rolling out and almost complete to all Microsoft 365 tenants. So what Microsoft doesn't do first, it leaps over in the end. And don't think that they have been building this for the last 5 months, because that's not true. They've been building these features for probably years, but they're closing them and pushing them out now. The competitor is getting the better of them, and that they're sorely needed. So it's a really interesting view on how Microsoft can use their weight and push forward different pieces. So I hope that was interesting. Loved it, putting it into the session. Speaking of also in person, there's this great whiteboard. So instead of sharing your screen, you can share a whiteboard. And so you can try to brainstorm exactly like you have been doing before. So this is a really exciting piece that makes meetings more interactive. Everyone can draw on it. Yes, it's hard to draw with a mouse. They just added the ability to put sticky notes. So just a really great way to interact, and it's right in your Teams meeting. Also, if you don't know, and we've been doing it by having town hall meetings, there is a live meeting that now has almost 20,000 people can be involved here. So, Sherry thought of the case where you have your annual company meeting, or you typically meet with a set of architects. We actually have some roundtables for different industries that we're hosting, actually in normal teams, so it's more collaborative. But if you want to have that large event, you can do it also right in the solution that you already have. Finally, we talk about all of these meetings, but what's important too, especially in the front line, is that all of this power is available on the phone. And so, Lou had actually asked a great question. Well, do I need to log in? So yes, you need to log in. You need to have a connection, and there are a few different ways to do that with Microsoft. but you'd need to log in. You don't have to necessarily have a subscription, but you get all of this power, all of the chatting, the ships, the forms Sherry showed, all directly on your mobile device, whether it's a phone, a tablet, or any of those different endpoints. So with that said, also a great tip that we've seen is now we're shifting from reaction to being purposeful. How are you going to make decisions to decide what is your new normal? How is it currently working for you? How have the frontline workers been effective? What is it that you're losing productivity? So we talked about how that's most important to the people who are on this call. You can measure it. You can measure it in several different ways. We also recommend not just using the data that comes within your daily work activities, whether it's a time report or a progress report from the project manager, but also an employee survey. How do they feel about the changes that you've been made? And then that gives you, data to make the decision of what your new normal is. Going back to, the great points Lou was bringing up with the McKinsey report, it's great to say, yes, you use more technology, but how are you going to use technology? The classic hammer in search of a nail. Let's use the right technology for the right reason. So I like bringing this up. I know it's a little generic, but based on all the activities and the data you can gather from everyday work when you're using Microsoft 365. Now, Lou, we're on one of the final slides here. I'm sure everyone's happy about that. Any key takeaways you'd like to share from your perspective?
Yeah, so a couple of the things. There's more stuff in Microsoft 365 than I was aware of, and I think also a lot of our customers are aware of. Is everything included, or is there the licensing based upon certain stages of what you get in the package?
Oh, wait a second. We didn't practice this question, but it's a great question that I'm sure people would ask. So a vast majority of the functionality is available in the license I showed before, an E3. Let's consider that sort of like the average license. What is not included are some extra level security features, and possibly there's a solution called Dynamics, where I mentioned the customer portals and some customer relationship management. Those are additional fees. But the predominant day-to-day activities, a lot of the competitive features are included. Right. And there's I joke, I wish I had a better answer. That's why it's a great question. But almost everything's included. And then there are different packages. In truth, for those people who are not in Microsoft 365, highly recommend the Microsoft 365 business package. And why I say that is because it is from your desktop, Windows 10, and includes the advanced security features in it. So yes, it's a little more expensive. We're still talking about, I think, $20 a user per month, so not right. Huge. But you get all of those features that you will use in the future.
Another question too is when you go, we do have customers and we are doing projects with BIM, not BIM, with the BI, Microsoft BI.
Yeah.
How does that data get into Office 365 or Microsoft 365 in order for you to create those dashboards?
That's a great question. So multiple different ways. You can save data in SharePoint. You can save data where you're used to in Excel, and you would just have to update the information in that database. I'm sorry, in the report. My next answer was in a database, and there are multiple different places where that database can reside. So I won't bore you with that. So the answer is everywhere. And also you can get as sophisticated as going into a live database that's in an external system. We have gathered data from banks actually for a leasing organization. So anything's possible, depends on how intense you want to be.
Great.
Great question, Sherry. How about you? Any other key takeaways you can think of for our attendees?
I think that if you want to learn more about what you heard today, to definitely get in touch with your partner or your client contacts within Witham, or feel free to email Lou, Adam, or myself.
That's great. And I see here, and keep the questions coming, someone's asking, again, if you want to have live meetings, do they need to have Teams? Nope. They just come in using an email address. And that's how they come into the large meeting. So you don't need a subscription to join a Teams meeting or to join the live event meeting. Great questions there. So just reviewing, you stared at the sign for just a little, the slide for a little bit. You can, use those large meetings. We do recommend, if you do have dedicated systems, there's also another solution that I didn't talk about, but it's called Microsoft Virtual Desktop. And you can access literally a full computer, even from your iPad. Actually, it was first on a Samsung if you want to. I don't recommend that. Also, half tongue-in-cheek, work with your tax auditor. You can completely do everything remotely. I know for auditing, this was a little bit of a head scratcher, but our teams definitely worked with their clients, and if they had to drop a box off of physical items, they were, and they transferred them safely. Still, services are able to happen, and we're not sure when the end is, but what is it that you can look for and make it into a competitive advantage? And so maybe it is, like McKinsey had pointed, the time to actually invest in tech. With that, and you will receive this, we have some technology resources for you that are available to be able to help make those decisions. As Sherry said, reach out to any one of us. And then I think we have the last poll, which is if you wanted to have a direct call from us to talk about this a little bit more. So we'll just leave that open and see if anyone else has any other questions while they are here. All right. Lou or Sherry, you think we can channel anyone? Are there any other questions the last 2 minutes that we can think of?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for attending, and I can't stress more that, and based on the information I receive in my attendance at organizations, there is a increased amount of security threats happening at construction organizations. The hackers know that they have not embraced technology like others have. And based on organizational involvement and hearing from clients, it's our understanding that the GCs, the people that control the projects, and the agencies and the public works arena are going to be mandating that contractors really have a better way of collaborating and embracing security as a wave of the future. So I think it's time that you really need to start embracing this. Microsoft's a powerful outfit. They're not going to let any competitor get ahead of them, in my opinion. And at Witham, we've gone through this. So I'm an old bricks and mortars guy, 56, going to be 57. Been doing this for 35 years, and I took it as a challenge, and it's very interesting. I just upgraded my Wi-Fi at home to 1 gig speed. Primarily, Adam, because my kids are gamers on the other side, and they are taking all my speed up. And I cut my movie channels out to keep that keep that in line because that cost can get out of control. But it's something that you really need to take serious. I know we've reached out to a lot of our construction clients and friends, and technology and change is not easy. I get it. Believe me, it's not easy, but it's something you have to do. As Warren Buffett was saying on CNBC the other day, he goes, those who complain about COVID and complain about the politics going on in this country and have excuses for everything are going to be the companies that are going to struggle. Those that embrace change and innovate and work on the new norm and push forward are going to be the successful entities that come out of this alive. And we're seeing it at Witham. We're seeing it. We hear about what our competition's doing, and I think our clients see how we've embraced Microsoft products. And it's not easy at first, believe me. We've all been through the phone issues. We've been through getting our clients to cooperate properly, but it does work out. You just got to stay the course.
Great words. All right. Well, with that, we'll give you a few minutes back. And thanks so much for spending time with us. And we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Sherry. Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Please remember to take a moment to complete the survey online and have a great day.